Hi, my name is Erika Calmeyer, and you're watching the Permanent Rain Press.
Hi everyone, it's Chloe with the Permanent Rain Press, and today I'm so happy to be joined by Erika Calmeyer. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you, and how are you?
I'm doing well, and I really appreciate you taking the time to chat. I know I've been wanting to chat with you for a while now, so happy we could get this done into the new year.
Yeah, me too. And I'm really sorry that you have to get up so early.
Yeah, before the interview,
I'm
we
just
were talking. And it's 2 p.m. in Erica's time zone, and in my time zone, it is 5 a.m. But I'm just happy to be here. Just an early start to the morning. Sometimes that's what you need. I feel like if I didn't have this interview, I'd probably be sleeping in a lot longer. So it could be a good thing.
okay, good. I'm glad you see it that way. Yeah.
So we have so much to discuss. So I'm going to jump right in. You are from Oslo, Norway. What can you tell me about your introduction to the arts and to film?
Well, I'm from a family of 11 artists. So I have a lot of actors and writers in my family, and my parents work in television, not so much with fiction, but more with entertainment, other kind of television programs. So it was kind of growing up. It was always like this kind of possibility that that is something you can do as a career, and it was very natural for me to kind of be in those environments. And I did a lot of acting as a kid, acted on stage, and that was just, I just loved it. And there's this feeling of a lot of people being together, telling a story, working together of something that's kind of bigger than themselves. Um, and I really love that. So that's kind of what I've been wanting to do, yeah, ever since, I guess. But at some point, also realizing that I wanted to be the one telling the stories. That like I loved acting when I was young, but I also felt that I want to be in charge of what I'm going to do. I don't want to wait for someone to come with the stories to me. So yeah, that's how I ended up more into the directing part, I guess. Yeah.
I love that because when you know that you might kind of be in the wrong area where you're like, I do like this, but I really want to kind of tell my own stories. And I read that you've actually been making films since you were 10 years old. So tell me what kind of themes and genres inspired you early on? And when you're that young, like what kind of films or videos are you creating?
uh, well, all kinds of things. Like we, music videos, and we did commercials, like with our friends. And like my first film was called The Dance Contest, and it was like the nice girls, and there was like the bad girls, and like and there was contests, and the nice girls they won, and those kinds of films. And it evolved from that. But it was, but I always thought it was just a lot of fun playing and creating. Yeah.
But I was thinking the dance contest. I wonder what that could be about.
The title is not very subtle. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe got it a bit more creative with those titles down the road. But before studying film, you actually studied communications and media studies. So I was curious, like, what did you learn from those classes that you kind of took away into your career as a filmmaker?
Well, I did media communications in high school. So in Norway, you can choose like a discipline for your high school. And yeah, so I did media communications, and that was, we did everything from like radio to journalism, animation, graphic design. But I did my major in film. And so high school was basically for me just making short films and doing the school play. And I think what I kind of got away from that was that it kind of fast tracked me on to understanding that film is really what I love doing and what I want to keep on doing. I guess I'm pretty sure I would have ended up there eventually. But like coming out of high school, I was quite clear on like what I wanted to do, and that's probably because I got to try so many creative different disciplines, and then finding film.
So growing up in a household of artists, like were your parents always very supportive of you going this route? And then when you said you wanted to become a director rather than like an actor or maybe another kind of position, what was their reaction to it all?
Well, they've always been very supportive. I think my dad like kind of would have wanted me to do something else because I mean it's quite a tough business and it's a tough path. So I guess he was just scared that I wasn't going to be able to do it. But like fundamentally, they've always been very supportive. So yeah, I've been very lucky with my family in that sense.
That's nice. And yeah, it is a very, I would say, like turbulent industry. It's always like ups and downs, but when you do have like those successes, they can be so nice to celebrate together. That includes you receiving a number of accolades for the short film music video you directed for The Weight of Spring. It was by The White Birch. So what can you tell me about conceptualizing that video with your cinematographer, Ben?
Um, yeah, that was well, for the people who haven't seen it, it's like a short film where we have still kind of we have a camera locked off in one position, and every scene is just one image with two characters and no dialogue. And what we wanted to like, we were very inspired by still images and kind of the idea of looking at a still image for a long time. You start to interpret it and you start to kind of, if it's a good image, the way it's composed and the way it's lit and the scenery or where it's set tells a lot about the characters or the person's emotions. And so it was kind of us trying to tell a story in one image but by composing the image and using like very subtle things from the actors like a look or a breath and kind of trying to put their story into the image kind of yeah, that was our idea, and kind of like playing with this like how much do we have to put on the screen for the audience to start to interpret the scene, and how much like we don't want to be too blunt and put too much in, but at the same time we want to like give them some clues of what the scene and what the story is about. So yeah, it was kind of like an exploration of that. Is how it's yeah, I guess how it started. Mm.
It was such a beautiful collection of moments. I know watching the video for the first time, I felt like almost intrusive watching the intimacy and the human connection that you portrayed. Everyone needs to go watch the video. I will say my favorite like scene in it or moment was with the man cleaning the books off the floor, like in that library scene, because just like juxtaposed with the song, like you could feel this loneliness and this anguish. So it was so well done and so well put together. um what did you ultimately want viewers to feel and like take away from it?
Well, so all of the scenes they have, they're all portraying people kind of dealing with their intimate relationships, and so for me, it's something that we all deal with in some way or other. Like either if we're in an intimate relationship or not, or if we have closed off, it's still a way of dealing with a relationship. So it was kind of this idea that even though we are very much different and we have different cultures, or we look different, or we think that we are very different, I mean, this intimacy is something that we all are dealing with in our personal lives, and that connects us because it's a human thing. And I think that's very beautiful, that no matter who we are, we all have this kind of longing and this yeah, we're all carrying this with us kind of.
Well, the stunning video, also stunning song by the band, by the musical artist. Now, last summer, you wrapped on your debut feature film, Storm. How did the shoot go? And overall, like, just tell us a bit about Storm and what it's all about.
Yes, that's very exciting. And it's it's a story about an 8-year-old girl that is she is accused of having caused the accident that killed her little brother. And the film is about how her mother deals with this question and this accusation, and how that affects their relationship. So it's a little away from Young Royals universe, but a very interesting film to work with. And I had wonderful actors. We had an 8-year-old girl in one of the leads, and also an amazing crew. So yeah, it's been good. And now I'm in post production, and it's set to release in October. So yeah.
So, post-production, everything's going smoothly. Like, I'm sure there were a lot of long days on set for you.
Yes, absolutely. Of course, it's always when you're shooting. So, but now we're almost done editing. So,
And this has been a story that has kind of been with you since 2014, like you and the kind of screenwriter, because you won a pitch prize for this back
mhm.
in 2014. So it's been a long time coming. Tell me about like the challenges to get to this point, because how long have you been kind of waiting to actually film the full length?
Yes. So it's been a project that's been with me for a very long time, and it's also it's a film that it's not, I mean, it's quite like a complex film, and it's quite a difficult story to tell. I think it's an incredibly beautiful story, but as a first time director, it's the kind of story that is not necessarily so easy to get kind of funding for. So that has been a challenge. And then it's also been, a corona has come and kind of been in our way, and we had to postpone the production quite a few times. So there's been a lot of things that have, yeah, made that made it take a long time. But now finally it's shot and it's there and it's coming out. So I'm very excited for that.
You are nearing the finish line, which is good news. I know the Swedish Film Institute gave you a grant for it, so there are a lot of people now supporting you as a filmmaker and believe in this story. So I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing it. Hopefully there are subtitles available for those who don't speak. What language is it in? It's in
It's a Norwegian. Yeah.
Norwegian, okay. But October, so a lot to look forward to, hopefully, leading up to its final release. We will shift gears now and talk about Young Royals. Before I do, we are discussing season 1 spoilers, so please make sure you are all caught up on Netflix before continuing. Now, tell me, how did you get involved with this series, and what were some of the early conversations that you had with the creators, writers, and your conceptual director, Rosh Kersos?
Yeah, so the first person I talked to was Roshta. So I had read I think it was the first 3 episodes, and I had a chat with her. I was very like interested in what she wanted to do, like what her vision or how she saw the project. And she talked about her vision both for like the tone and the style, and also the casting. Um, and I kind of felt that we clicked artistically and in what we wanted the show to be. So after talking with her for the first time, I was very excited for like seeing what we could actually do with this. And then I spoke with the producers and with Lisa, and I really felt that we were all kind of going in the same direction, and were like passionate about the same things. And yeah.
It always means so much, like when everyone is kind of on the same page for what they want to do with the show. I'm curious how you and Roshta work together because, as you mentioned, she kind of set the overall tone for the show with the sound and music. But for the three episodes that you directed, which were 3, 5, and 6, did you have like full artistic or creative freedom with what you wanted to do?
Hmm. Um, yes, so Rashta and I worked very closely together, and I did feel, like I said, that we really connected on the tone and on the like our filmatic tastes, and so it was. I felt that it was very easy to kind of understand where she wanted to go, and that was very much like in line where I wanted to go. So quite early on, we found like this. I felt like we found like space of trust, um, and uh, and I was there quite for a long time in prep with her and also the cinematographer Marek. We were working together and like looking at photos and references, and so kind of when it came to the shoot, uh, I felt like we all had this like shared vision of what we wanted to do, and that was quite clear. And so then it was very much rushed to just going like you do your thing and you take care of your episodes because we have this like very clear idea of what we want this to be.
And it kind of makes it like the seamless transition between episodes. Like, even though it's different directors, like you did 3 and she did 3 episodes, it kind of flows together naturally. As a director, like, how would you describe your approach and thought process when you went into a new episode of Young Royals?
Um, yeah, so when I start, I guess when I start read a script or like go into a new show, it's for me it's trying to find like what is it really about and what is the discussion that is in the show or in the film, like what is the question that we are trying to find an answer to. And for young royals, it was very clear to me that it was about Wilhelm's choice or like Wilhelm's dilemma. um, and so that's kind of like a bit of a compass of like this is the discussion that everything, like all the other characters and all the scenes and everything is kind of like trying to look at this question, this discussion in different ways. um and when I know that, I'll go into an episode and see how does this episode sort of fit into this discussion, like how is this episode pushing us this direction or looking at it at another angle. um and then looking at, of course, the characters arcs and seeing where they like what the function of the episode is. And when I yeah and then from there there's a whole other process, but at least it's like kind of like the beginning of finding a direction and kind of a way into the episode.
I think that's fascinating to hear that you kind of have this focal point because there is a lot of other character kind of storylines going on, but as you mentioned, like there is a central focus on Wilhelm and his decision and the choices he makes in his life. When you are going over the scripts from Lisa and the writing team, like are there any specific elements that you like to identify and kind of circle prior to going into shooting?
Mm. um Yes, and it's for me it's a very intuitive process. So it's about all the things that I talk about, like trying to find what are we talking about and what do we want with this and how is everything kind of like supporting that to give it a full meaning. But then it's also very like intuitive of what do I what drives me, what am I excited about, where do I kind of like where's my heartbeat a bit faster when I read, like, and trying to really take care of that so that all the emotions of the text really like comes through. And also like finding where the places where the characters make decisions is usually like a place where you kind of stop and you see like, because that's a place like making a decision or a big choice says a lot about your character and a lot about your humanity. And it's also a place where there is naturally a lot of drama and a lot of kind of insecurities and a lot of things that you might want to, you know, talk about. So that's always kind of place where I stop and see if like are we using this enough? Are we kind of like should we? How can we give this its full potential?
Decisions, right? That's where you kind of have two options and then you make one, and then you could also have a whole lot of other options that, you know, you didn't kind of choose. So yeah, to focus on that, I think that that is really interesting, and I love getting to hear your thoughts behind that. You mentioned you were part of the kind of casting process. So what can you share a bit about your involvement in that process, and maybe some insight into meeting some of the actors that you helped cast for the first time?
Yeah, so that I mean, I'm so proud of the cast that we have, and think they're very special. And like an important thing in this casting process was to not go for kind of the cliches of the characters, but to find people that would bring something, some more layers and more depth to the characters. And I really think that they all do. And it was very important to have a diverse cast and have a cast that kind of that really could contribute to more layers of each of the characters. And I mean, like Malte is the exact opposite of his character playing August, and they are all playing characters, but they have so much personality that brings in and kind of seeps in. And yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did. Yeah. And I think it's important, like when you're going into the casting process, like Roshta and even Lisa talked about it, like having that open mind and kind of thinking out of box than what you might see on like other programs. We spoke with Carmen Gloria Perez, and she said you were there and you two bonded over kind of being from Norway. So what do you remember from like some of those auditions, and do you think it's important to kind of build that personal rapport as well, and does that help in your casting process?
Yeah, so yeah, and I remember Carmen coming, and I remember because we were quite late, we were always already started shooting, and we couldn't find our Linda in Sweden. So I talked to the casting director that I work with in Norway, and she did a self tape with Linda, or she did a tape with Linda, with Carmen that came over, and we shot that. We did a scene that was during lunch, and I filmed it on my iPhone with Omar and Carmen, and they just had this amazing connection. Like it was very it was very like instant that you could see that there was a connection and a chemistry. And she was really we were doing this scene where she's kind of teasing Simon about having an affair with Willem. And so that was, yeah, meeting her there was like this really instant feeling of there's something special.
And it's always nice to find that when you're doing casting and you know you kind of do something right. I think I saw a photo if it was you and Roshta and your lead actors. So that's Nikita, Frida, Malte, Edvin, and Omar. And you had like a dinner or a meal, maybe around the time filming started. So tell me a bit about that and what it was like to get to meet them kind of all together for the first time.
Oh, you really done your research. I'm very impressed. um, yeah, so that was a dinner that we had at Rushta's place where she made food for us all, and we kind of connected and we talked about, you know, everything from like what we were excited about, but also like what we were like what are we scared of, like what are we nervous about, like what is going to be the challenges. And I think it's very important that there is like a fundamental trust between everyone before you go into a production and a place like that, that you kind of have seen each other's good sides and each other's bad sides, and we've been open with each other, and kind of you really feel like it's a place where you can make mistakes, that it's a place where you can kind of be yourself, and that you can and kind of take away as much of like this pressure or like this trying to perform as possible, because it is a scary thing to come onto a set, and there's so many people, and there's a lot that you have to, like, as an actor but also as a director, but there's like a lot of pressure on getting it right, and you sometimes have like short amount of time. So like, as much as you can kind of create the safe space um and get to know each other and understand each other and understand the characters and what we're doing, like, beforehand, I think is very important.
You mentioned a lot of pressures as a director, like you are working with deadlines as well. So as much as I know you want to enjoy your time and have fun on set, it can be like a pretty stressful situation. So I was just curious, like as a director, are there any sort of techniques that you use to kind of, I wouldn't say like calm down or mitigate any kind of high stress situations?
um Well, I think it's really important to kind of it's really important to play while we're doing what we're doing, because um, there is a lot of stress. It could be a very short amount of time that we have to do things, but um, it's important that we keep our creativity and that we keep like our playfulness, because there's always like, we have the script and we know what we're going to do, but there's always like, we are creating, and there's always, and to be able to create, we need to be able to feel free, and we need to be able to like have fun with it. So I try to, like, always, when we get on set and we have the actors and we start blocking and we start reading through the scene, to kind of keep this sort of idea and playfulness around, like, everything could happen. Like, if you have an idea, if you have a something, like, you want to do something with the lines, are we going to move in a different way, or like set it up in a different way, like, everything is possible. And even though we have a really short amount of time, try to make that room for everyone to sort of feel like you can use yourself and your creativity and create something before time's up and we have to move on to the next scene. I think that's very important.
Yeah, just I guess like you mentioned having endless possibilities, right? Like when you're on set, you don't want to let any negativity affect you, and that's important to move the process forward and kind of get to that end. I like to ask this question to a lot of people behind the scenes, but do you remember the specific moment that you knew with Edwin and Omar you had found something special as Wilhelm and Simon?
um yeah, I don't know if there was like a specific moment, but there was, this natural chemistry from the very get-go. And also, like, what I was talking about, this playfulness, is that they really had that. Like, they had this connection, and they were really playing off of each other, and also kind of going with their impulses and wanting, like, to create and wanting to develop the scene, and like coming with ideas. And so they were incredibly fun to work with, and you could see that there was something like special in the way that they were playing off of each other like the whole time.
Yeah, and they just have such a good energy together. Like even as a viewer, like through the screens, you can feel it. And I have to note that with with actors like Omar, I think Frida and Nikita, all three of them are like brand new actors. This is like their first, Young Rose is their first big project. So did that really impress and surprise you, like during the casting process and then seeing their work on set?
Yes, that I was super impressed by them. And they were all so professional from the very beginning. Like, you couldn't tell that this was their first like real acting job. Um, and yeah, so it was, and it was very much about like that openness and kind of eagerness to play and to be interested in what we were doing, that I really felt from everyone.
Now, which was your favorite scene to direct and why?
um there were a lot of scenes that was fun to direct, uh and I think maybe the fish scene, that has been called, it's a scene in episode 5, where Simon and Wilhelm is at Simon's place for the first time. And this was actually the beginning of a scene that was written that was after they had made out. There was a written scene, and that was a really nice scene. But I kind of felt that there was this I felt there was a potential in like Wilhelm coming into Simon's room for the first time, like that when you're coming to your crush and seeing their room for the first time, and you all know something is going to happen, but it's like, who's going to do this, take the first step? Like there's so much like tension there. So I wanted to have that in the beginning of the scene. And on set, I made room for that in the schedule so I could spend longer on the scene and just kind of talk to Edwin and Omar about that feeling and about the situation. And then we basically improvised the scene in rehearsal on set. I asked Edwin to walk around, like look at his things, and eventually he talked about the fish. And I was like, oh, tell him about the fish and what they're called. And he made up the names. And then we kind of just developed the scene there, then and there, also with intimacy coordinator Sarah. And it was just this, when like we're in this place where we know each other so well, we've done intimate scenes before, and we're all like working very intuitively, and it's really feeling like everyone is just there and it's flowing and we're creating something. And then when you kind of see the sparks and I'm looking at my little monitor and sort of really feeling that the energy and the tension is there, that's just so much fun to feel that we're creating this together right here and now. Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned the word focus, because I spoke with Sarah Arhusias, who's the intimacy coordinator, and they also mentioned that this was one of their favorite scenes for the fun and focused workflow and what it can deliver, because they mentioned, similar to what you said, like everyone was focused and really like you could see all the passion there. You mentioned written scene. So without giving like everything away, what kind of was in that scene before you kind of shifted and said, I'd prefer maybe not as much dialogue at the beginning?
I don't know if I'm going to go too much into to what was. It was a very lovely written scene, and it was, and we did shoot that. So this was
Deleted kind of scene somewhere out there.
Yes. Yes, and there was this kind of lead up to that we added, and then yeah.
So when you are working like on that specific scene, it was also one of my favorites, and I know so many viewers, the fish tank scene, but what kind of questions might you pose to your actors like Edwin and Omar when you mention like going over those feelings that one might feel like seeing their crush's room for the first time? Are there any kind of specific questions that you pose out there?
That's a good question, and it's a long time since we shot it. But I think we were talking about that. For Simon, it's like he knows that Wilhelm lives in a castle, and he lives behind the laundry room. So it's just kind of like it's your crush coming into your personal space, and all of a sudden you get quite like you're quite aware of everything that you just take for granted. It's like what is he gonna think about that? And this picture is quite dumb, like all those things, to see like how are they gonna react. So yeah, so we talked about that feeling, and then as we were improvising, they would give me a lot of suggestions, and then I would pick up on things like, oh, that's great, and do that, and then that's how we kind of like put it together.
Yeah, because with Simon, like he's always been really vulnerable, but like you mentioned, that's kind of a new feeling, right? Having someone come into your home and knowing their difference in class, and that's something that I'm sure both of them were kind of considering, but mainly more so Simon. Now, what was the most challenging scene for you to direct, and why?
Well, I remember I found the scene, um, the scene where Sarah and Simon has a fight in episode 6. When they make up, like I found that quite difficult. It was because there was a lot of topics that the scene had to uh, talk about or go into. Um, in the scene, and it was kind of, I was having a hard time kind of finding the right way to kind of maneuver through those different topics and make it flow and make it natural. um, so that was also what's on set. We working with Frida and Omar, and just kind of trying different directions, and also using blocking, like using them, her like getting up, walking away, him following her, she like walking off, then turning around, coming back, like using blocking as also a way to communicate and to kind of um, get us to find a good flow and good like intentions and turning points in the scene. Yeah.
I absolutely loved that scene, not because I love seeing the siblings fight, but it was such an emotional scene because they were basically shouting their perceived their flaws at one another, until they finally are kind of able to ground each other with their words. But you could see how much it hurt. So with Frida and Omar, like similarly to the other kind of discussions that you have with your actors, like what kind of emotions or feelings did you want them to play off of?
Hmm. Well, um, well, it all like it's a fight, but it all comes from vulnerability, and it comes from like not like feeling that you're being let down by the other person. So that was kind of what we talked a lot about that for like both of the characters, and I feel that that's what also comes through inside. It's just not them like putting like just pushing dirt on each other. It's like they're doing that, but it's because they're feeling let down and they want to be kind of confirmed, and they want that, and they want to. I mean, they love each other like deep down, and that kind of seeps through, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Their interactions with each other were some of my favorites during the whole season. I wanted to discuss a few more scenes that you directed. Those two actually I also had down on my list. So we got two of them out of the way because they were such strong scenes. Now, the piano scene in the music room with Wilhelm and Simon, where it starts innocently, they're exchanging notes on the piano, and then Wilhelm says we should forget about that kiss that happened, and there was like a 180-degree shift in tone. So what kind of cues did you give Edwin and Omar to kind of guide them through those emotions? Because that was one of the kind of earlier scenes that you directed, or at least in one of your first episodes.
Mm. I actually think it was one of the first scenes that I did, the first scenes of the whole show. Um, and Yeah, so and I remember when we shot it, it was very much about like finding um their connection, and we did improvise around like what they were doing, and it was very important for me to get these like looks and all that kind of like the feeling like you're sitting so close and you can't really look but you want to look, like to have that tension. um and that was also kind of, since it was the first scene that we did like shooting, I remember I was coming out of there feeling like just exhilarated because it was so much fun working with Edwin and Omar in these kinds of scenes, because they gave so much and they came with so much. And so that was kind of it, they just, the scenes kind of evolve with like working with them. um and yeah, was there more to that question?
No, you answered it so well. I know it was like a long time ago from shooting since now, but I love that you kind of remembered tidbits. And as you mentioned, it was one of if not the first scene that you worked on. Now, when Simon confronts August, demands his money outside the school, those are two sides of both those characters we haven't seen before. So what do you remember from that specific scene and maybe just working with them individually before maybe rehearsing together and how that would look like? Because you filmed that like at night outside. I know we spoke with both of them, but Multi remembered it was like it was pretty cold that that night as well.
Yeah, so I remember like uh I remember I was like trying to find in myself like where is Simon coming from here? Like where is he coming from? And so we spoke a lot about that and about like the feeling of being pushed down and pushed down and pushed down and like finally wanting to break free from that. Um, and and it really is like a shift in status between the two of them, where we also see like the vulnerability in August, and that's also what's so great about Malte is that he has accessibility to that vulnerability, so we kind of see him um, break for the first time, and and yeah, and it was I remember it as a very intense shoot because there was like choreography with the stunts, and naturally like when you're in like when they're doing that, like everything just like the physicality of it also affects the emotions. So I remember it like being um quite tough and quite an emotional shoot.
Yeah, I'm sure it was, but those are the days you might leave a bit drained, but at the same time it feels really good to kind of see it come together and have that emotional range and be able to work on that with your actors. Now, the aftermath of Wilhelm denying it was him in the video where him and Simon meet and he says you can take all the time you need, but you have to do it on your own. These characters have been through so much leading up to this point. It was kind of like a goodbye, hopefully for now, fingers crossed. But what do you remember from kind of filming that scene and what it was like? Like, where were their emotions at during this scene?
Hmm. Yes, I really like that scene, and I think they did an amazing job, Edwin and Omar there. And what we talked a lot about, and what was important for me, was that it was not going to be like that. It wasn't going to be a fight, and that it wasn't going to be like a "how could you" and kind of again like pushing dirt on each other and just trying to break each other down. Like that's not what it's about. It's very much about Simon. I mean, they're two people who really love each other, and it's about Simon kind of just he knows that he has to put a boundary, and he wants to do that in the most in a loving way, but in a way that he really has to choose himself first. Um, and yeah, so that was important to sort of get that through um, that it was something that he had to do, and it wasn't about it wasn't about anger, it wasn't about like punishing Wilhelm at this point.
And when Wilhelm kind of hears those words and he realizes that he's kind of, this is it, like he's separating from him at this time, what kind of emotions did you want Edwin to focus on?
It's a point where I mean, he comes into it, and he has an idea that this is going to be okay. Like Simon will understand that I didn't have a choice, and he feels so pushed by his family that in his head, like he didn't have a choice, and he wants Simon to understand that, and he is, which is also kind of like a side of Willem that I like as a character, is that he is quite like self-righteous. He comes from a privileged background, and he is used to people like doing what he wants or like accommodating him. So he goes into the scene and expects that from Simon, but then realizes that a line has been drawn, and that he yeah, that's for Simon, it stops here. So
And I just want to say that for Simon, I loved that for him because I think it was important that he drew that boundary, because he needs to also take care of himself and focus on himself. So I know that all the viewers are looking forward to seeing how this plays out, in season 2, hoping for a happy ending. Working with Sarah, the intimacy coordinator, was this your first time working with an intimacy coordinator on set?
yeah, it was, and that was. I think from now on, I'll be wanting to work with an intimacy coordinator, especially working with young people uh, in intimate scenes. So she has a very distinct way of working. She draws very clear lines of what we're doing when, and so she makes everyone feel very comfortable and secure in what we are doing and when we are doing what, and also contributing with a lot of great creative ideas and just a great energy on set. So I loved having her around.
Yeah, the energy, just speaking with them, it's like you can tell that when someone is so focused on the work at hand on the scene, but then also making sure that the actors and the crew behind the scenes are also all kind of kept involved and knowing what's going on, and that's what really makes the production come together. I know you are not super active on social media and Instagram, but when you do get on and see the messages of love and support, what has that meant to you?
Oh, that has been absolutely overwhelming and it just incredibly touching. And I'm so grateful for all the comments and the messages and everything that fans have been writing and communicating. And for me, like having I always I wanted to make stories because I feel like because I have a message and I want to talk about things, and I feel it's very important that we as when we are filmmakers and we have a platform to sort of bring stories that we feel are meaningful out there, and so it's always been important to me like what messages we are communicating. But then when you get all like this amazing feedback of support for like how important that we have diverse characters, how important that people have natural skin, which kind of surprised me that this was so important to people, and that these stories are being told. It just really like reaffirms to me how important it is that we are conscious about the stories we are telling, and that we push these stories out there because they really mean lot to people, and I feel like that has become very clear through all of the love and feedback.
Yeah, it's been a series that has resonated with people around the world. It's crazy because I'm sure when you make it, you're like, okay, this is Netflix Sweden. It's going to maybe make waves in Sweden, but the fact that so many people across North America and other countries have just come together and really embraced these characters is something that's so special. Now we are going to go through some fan art. So do you have your phone handy or another device?
Yes, I will get my phone.
Okay.
Okay, so I know you sent me some links and I haven't opened them
Yes.
yet.
Okay, good. I'm hoping that you haven't seen them yet, but if you have, you can pretend you're looking at them for the first time. But you can basically click each link, starting from top to bottom, and I'll basically hand you the hypothetical microphone, and you can share what you like about each of the fan art. Disclaimer, they're all amazing, but yeah, you can go from the top.
Okay, should I start from the top?
Yes.
Oh, that's very cute.
It's adorable, right? We're gonna show the screenshot of what they look like on the screen.
Oh, that's really lovely. Yeah, that's very cute.
I know it's cute. Okay, we'll go to the next one.
Okay. Oh, wow. Oh, it's isn't that from A Love Story by
Um,
Roy Andersson?
it could be.
It looks like kind of a pastiche, which is a great film. I love that film. Maybe it is, yeah. It's really nice. Wow,
So
people.
Ponyo Papi, they do art for the show, like they have done other characters,
Yes,
and it's always like this regal feeling to their artwork. Yeah.
yeah.
And your name is on the poster too.
Yeah. I've seen some stuff that he's done. Like that's amazing. Um, wow. I just love how like we put something out there and people just keep developing in it from for themselves and they keep like developing the universe and yeah, it's lovely. Oh,
A Wilman Snow Kiss, much requested
wow.
by fans.
That's
Was
really
that ever like an option in your show or not really? Because I guess there wasn't really snow. Even though you kind of filmed during the winter, it didn't snow yet, right?
no, it didn't. We wished it would. We did film in December, in late December, so we could have, but that's cute. That's very nice. And I could it looks a bit also like the kiss that we have in episode 5, uh, which was also like an improvised thing that we just did. We were on our way from like shooting one scene to shooting another scene, and I asked them to like walk down this little path, and I think I yelled like kiss him, and they did, which is just one take, but
Oh, really? It was improvised. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a sweet moment. I think it's kind of just like, it's natural. They're in that
Mm,
environment. Yeah, there
mm,
aren't really a lot of other people around at that point. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, they're so well done with all the detailing and everything. Oh. Okay, should I do the next one? Oh, wow.
And this was a scene that you directed.
Yes. Wow. I can't, it's just crazy that people they spend so much time doing this and like it's so well done and just wow.
It must be like humbling because you think, okay, I filmed the scene and then you get to watch it back on Netflix, but then now to have people basically drawing the
Yeah.
exact scene that you spend a lot of time and effort in, but it's a scene that means a lot to so many people.
Yeah, it's incredible. And it's just really incredible. Also, like we make something that we are touched by, and then just to realize that it also touches other people. It you feel like this connection to other people that also that we're touched by the same thing, we believe in the same thing, kind of. Yeah. Wow. Mm, wow.
Yeah,
This
it's
must
like what
be
you
painful.
mentioned. I know, right? But it's like what you mentioned
Okay.
earlier when artists like take these characters and they create something like new in their art and show that emotion inspired by the events of the show, whether good or maybe, yeah, painful.
Hmm. Wow. If I don't say this surely now, my heart will break. My heart has started to separate. Wow. I love that. That's like a new scene.
It's so poetic, right?
Mhm.
We will go to the last link.
Mhm. Wow, yeah, I've seen this one.
Wow, an Emmy Awards win for the talented woman of Young Royals. Is that a foreshadow?
Fingers crossed. Yeah. It's incredibly humbling and just incredibly it's absolutely like overwhelming and sort of mind blowing, and it's kind of like I don't like I understand it, but then I don't really understand it, you know, like because in my everyday life I'm still living my everyday life, but then it's all of a sudden there's this whole big
If you
yeah
stepped on Instagram, it's like this
yeah
whole big thing. Even
yeah,
Twitter, there's a Young Royals Twitter that there's a whole other community there. Obviously, they overlap, but yeah.
yeah. And oh, really, it's really, really beautiful and really humbling, and I feel so incredibly grateful. Um, yeah, wow. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love that you got to see those, and I know that there will be a lot more artwork to come, both of season one and season two, when it gets filmed, Netflix finally drops it. But I wanted to talk about in 2018, you posted a photo sporting a Girls Support Girls shirt, which is so important not only in life, but I think in the film industry. So to work on a project like Young Royals with so many women, both in the cast and behind the scenes in the crew, like how empowered did you feel going onto set each day?
Hmm. I love that it was, I think it was like one of the first, yes, it was the first time I had Skype like with Rushta, Lisa, and me because it was COVID and I was in Norway and it was like our first kind of talk, and we were looking at each other and we were like, we're all like young girls and we're doing this, and that was yeah, that was really, you know, that's nice, and yeah, so it absolutely I felt empowered on set, and I think it's important that we lift each other up and that we help each other and we make room for each other, and not just, you know, for girls but for representation in all genders and sexualities and ethnicities, and we really we like it sounds a bit like a cliche, but we really are stronger, and the stories we tell become more complex and interesting when we really include um, people, like a wide range of people. So and as filmmakers we do have a platform to do that, so it's important that we use it.
And I think just as you mentioned, like being a filmmaker, making sure that on set you kind of I don't want to say tick criteria, but at the same time, you want like the best people in those positions, but you want to keep it open. You want all these strong, powerful voices, and that's how you get the most out of collaboration and like an artistic vision. For those interested in directing and filmmaking and inspired by your work, like how and where might you recommend they start? Like what's something that you wish you had known maybe when you were younger that you kind of wish you got to learn or learn earlier on?
Well, yeah, I was like very focused on what I wanted to do from very young age. And like looking back, I think I could have been a bit more relaxed. You know, like it's I mean it's all about the hard work eventually, but like it's also you're also film is also depicting life. And so living your life is also valuable. And so kind of looking back, like I don't regret anything that I did because I loved making films. That's what I wanted to do. But like also could have traveled on or like studied something and like figured it out. Like I don't want to do that and do something else. And I think all of those experiences, like you carry them with you and they're important when you want to tell stories. And then besides from that, like I think like making films, it's it really is like about also many things, but also it's like sticking to it. I think like nothing is good at the first when you write your first script or when you write your first draft, and you will at some point like hate your story or hate your idea or like feel like everything is like not really going your way in those creative processes. And I think it's very important to know that, okay, I'm at this point where everything sucks, but I just gotta get over it and stick to it and keep working and doing the work, and eventually that'll pay off.
Yeah, just like trusting that process and that journey. Though, of course, I'm sure the dance contest wasn't that bad, but we'll,
I
we'll circle back. But it's nice to have, like, that reference point, because you have that, and then you will have Storm, and you kind of get to juxtapose the two as to where you started to where you are today. We have one final question for you, our signature question. If you could be any ice cream flavor, which would you be and why?
I'll probably be like a dark chocolate, something, because that's the best. Yeah.
Simple answer, dark chocolate. No other ones come close.
No. No.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Erika, for taking the time to chat. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me and for getting up early.
Not a problem at all. This is such a nice conversation. For all those watching, make sure to catch Erika's work in Young Royals Season 1. It is out on Netflix. Storm is coming October 2022. Hopefully, Erika will keep us updated on her socials for that, and we will see you next time.